Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we have a special video. Mantis is actually in the studio here helping record some of the other type of content that we're getting ready to release here that if you are subscribed, you will get alerted for. So we figured we'd go ahead and also record a video as well because some new information in regards to the J.J. Abrams Superman movie got released or confirmed by James Gunn. I think it was 2 days ago now.
A couple days ago, yeah.
Yeah, so everybody kind of remembers in 2021, J.J. Abrams was supposed to be in charge of a Superman project where it was going to be a black Superman.
A black sheriff? He's black? And why not? It worked in Blazing Saddles.
And of course, there was a lot of uproar.
There was
a lot of people
pushback on it. That they were like, "Is this the direction that we're taking the DCU?" Like, and at the time, I totally understand that. And I don't remember. Maybe you can refresh my memory, but did they designate that as Elseworlds at the time, or did they just say
they did not?
Okay, so that makes sense why everyone was kind of pissed off about it.
So that's a very new development too, and I feel like they just now decided, like when they decided that they're going to still have the Batman, Robert Pattinson's Batman, and Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. They're like, hey, this is what we can do, and now we can still do a black Superman.
Yeah, it's their out.
Yeah, it is, right?
Yeah.
But it still allows them to kind of
Sure, yeah.
do this. So, for those that may not be familiar, there was the big uproar because you're taking a character that has been in the comics since 1938. He's basically your first superhero, and they were just going to race swap him. Okay, and if you've seen some of our past videos, Mantis and I have discussed race swapping. I'm not a fan of it, right? There are plenty of black characters in the Marvel and DC universe that you have not even touched on that have their own unique stories that you should be doing instead of just trying to take the easy way out and race swapping a character just for the sake of race swap.
For me, it's the same as gender swapping it. It's the same as power swapping it. Like, Superman can now, I don't know, fucking go through time. Like, that's just ridiculous to me. Like, I don't get the point of that. As the main character, right? Like, the beauty of this, like we said, it gives him an out. It doesn't bother me that much because it's its own separate thing. Whether it's good or bad, doesn't matter. If Joker turned out to be great, right? But let's just say it didn't. Let's just say it sucked. Well, then that doesn't matter because it's not in the main storyline. It's not in the main DCU, right? I mean, it really hasn't been a main Joker in DCU, and I mean, I don't know if you want to count. Heath Ledger is part of DC. I don't guess it's not RIP. There hasn't been one, but let's just say, it's like there hasn't been that character in the mainline DC. But let's just say Joker did well. That's great. It turned out great. But if it didn't, oh well, it's not attached to it. Who cares?
I got nothing left to lose. Nothing can hurt me anymore.
Right?
So my thing with it is, I like the idea that, and Mantis had just mentioned it. Now what they're basically saying is, yes, there are going to eventually be two Batmans running concurrently. There's the Robert Pattinson Batman and yet as unknown named Batman in the DCU, James Gunn's rebirth of the DCU basically. So they're going to run concurrently, but they're basically calling this other set of timelines the Elseworlds, which ironically, if you've watched the Arrowverse, their second to last crossover event was called Elseworlds.
Interesting.
Okay, you remember we actually watched it together because you remember we're sitting there and it's where like Barry and Oliver got flip flopped in each other's body, and when they go to Smallville, remember the theme coming on?
Yeah.
Oh my God, when the Smallville theme, I was so excited. I was like, oh, and then it actually had the Kent farm from Smallville. I'm like, we're gonna get to see Tom Welling. No, spoiler alert. Fuck. I'll put something before this in post that says spoiler alert because we're really bad about that. But again, you shouldn't be here this far into the channel with us if you haven't seen this stuff.
Okay, I will say this for just being me. I don't know. Like, I could see where some people that aren't as into it haven't seen a specific episode. What episode of that was the crossover series? Was that the 5th one or whatever?
No. In the Elseworlds, that was the very start of the Elseworlds crossover.
Okay.
Was the Smallville thing.
So they went first, and then
maybe second. Two. It was the second episode.
Yeah.
Of Elseworlds
Either
crossover.
way, it's a very obscure reference.
It is not, because it was Smallville. That is not obscure.
What I say is obscure is, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, some people we'll call them normies.
Well, we call you normies.
Sometimes I'm a normie. Like, you pick up on that stuff. Like, you pick up on this stuff way more than I do. But, like, okay, the title is called Elseworlds. Like, what does that mean? Like, I was thinking, they're crossing over, blah, blah, blah. But not the actual meat and potatoes of it, where they're talking about, like, Elseworlds Superman, where it's a completely different timeline, completely different thing with Black Superman and whatnot. It's just one of those things where I guess maybe some people that aren't as well versed in the Superman lore would know if they saw the title of the show, of that episode, right? I think, kind of bringing it back to the specific case with J.J. Abrams, I don't know, like, J.J. Abrams has a good movie, and then he has bad movies. Like, he has the lens flare. You know, it's a thing. I think his earlier couple of his other movies were good, and then he just got into, like, the weird shit where, you know, I don't know.
If you go back, because obviously, you know, we're children of the 80s and 90s. If you go back to the 80s and 90s, J.J. Abrams, I feel like he had solid, good things. Like, all of his movies, like, oh, yeah, that's J.J. Abrams, you know. It's like, and you knew, you could watch the movie, you could tell. And yeah, lately, it's kind of like, you know, I wouldn't say hit and miss. It's like a 1 in 5, you know. Yeah. Like, it's not a great ratio right now. But I like that they're doing the Elseworlds thing, right? Like, okay, have it as its own separate timeline. My thing is, and this is just my opinion, don't get fucking pissed at me for saying this, guys. You can leave in the comments respectfully. But I don't like the idea of do not make a black Clark Kent. There are two, well, realistically only one. There are two black Supermen in the multiverse. So
you're separating Clark Kent from, quote unquote, you call him Superman, but I know who you're going with, the two that you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's not the same, even in their separate universes, they're not the same. They're not Clark Kent.
No, they are Superman, but they're not Clark Kent.
Right.
Okay, and I think that's a very big distinction, especially when you're going to run with the Elseworlds line, where obviously you've got the new Superman coming in the DCU and all that stuff. Bring Calvin Ellis into it, right? Okay, so he's from the comics in 2009, where they did the Final Crisis, right? So Final Crisis is similar to Elseworlds in like the Arrowverse and Crisis on Infinite Earths. Those two are both the crossovers in the Arrowverse. It's similar to where basically Darkseid comes back. He's going to destroy the universe and everything with anti-life equation.
The classic.
Yeah, obviously the classic. The Monitor gets involved, or the Anti-Monitor basically gets involved in it. And finally, Superman gets to the point where he gets the Miracle Machine. And the Miracle Machine grants him one wish, basically.
Of course it is.
Yeah, it's a little much, but
there. Where's the cellophane nest? That's what I want to know.
Okay, well, so this is where it comes into it. So with the Miracle Machine, he basically, his wish is to have a bunch of Supermen show up, and that's where they pull from, because Calvin Ellis is the Superman from Earth 23, whereas you have like Val Zod.
Right.
That's
what I was thinking.
Yeah, he's the Superman, the Black Superman from Earth 2. Now, if you also remember in the Krypton series, the Zods they were black, right? That was their thing, but that was that house. Those are what I love, right? Because that's a good story. You have a story. You don't have to just say, hey, basically we just race swapped them. No, you have a very, very good story with these black characters that you can make it, and they're still called Superman, right? I'm okay. I don't care that it's a black guy being called Superman. Right. I don't want a black Clark Kent.
Right.
First off,
there's not.
Tell me one black guy you know. I'm not trying to be racist here, but tell me one black guy you know that's named Clark.
Kellogg.
Fuck.
Right, it's sports stuff. I know. It's not his wheelhouse.
All right.
However, I agree with you. Like, and I love Krypton. Like, it's aside from Smallville, and it's so funny that WB, or no, it was on Sci-Fi. It was on Sci-Fi Channel. I actually enjoyed that show. It kind of got weird when they started doing the Doomsday stuff, but I thought it was going off on a tangent here, but the Brainiac stuff was really cool the way they started.
I love the Brainiac stuff.
Yeah, was really good. But you're right. Like they did. I mean, they incorporated Val-Zod in there, and I think Val-Zod is probably the most popular version of quote unquote Black Superman, right? Like or alternate Superman. You know, I feel like it's fine. And if J.J. Abrams does do Val-Zod as Black Superman, fine with it. Awesome. I think it'll do fine.
And then if you want to do a tie-in with the Elseworlds, again, if you want to do Final Crisis issue 7 is where Calvin Ellis comes in. Mm-hmm. If you want to pull them all in there, I don't care. That'd be awesome, right? Yeah. But just don't say we're just going to do a Black Clark Kent. Like, come on, be a little more original. Use one of the... Yeah, it's very lazy. Like Deadpool says in there, he's like, that's just lazy writing.
That's just lazy writing.
Yeah, and it doesn't work. How many, like, I mean, I don't know, I don't want to go through the movies, the shows that have been canceled in the past, let's just say 2 years. Like, Disney Marvel is hurting, Disney Star Wars is hurting right now. Like, all of this woke shit that they keep trying to do, just, it's not like, oh, the fans hate, like, I always go back to, like, the Ghostbusters thing. It's like, well, this movie wasn't made for men. Or it's like, well, this movie is just because, you know, you all are bigoted, and blah, blah. And I'm just like, or maybe your movie's just bad. Maybe the writing's terrible. So maybe you don't want to watch it. Like, I don't know. If it could be, you know, the Black Superman with Val-Zod, it could be an epic, awesome movie. And that's great. That's fantastic. As long as it's not Clark Kent, right? Like, that's it.
Well, because my thing is, I understand with the crossover with the Elseworlds, you're going to eventually bring in multiple Supermans, because again, that's with Final Crisis, that's what happens, right? But if you do Val-Zod and you do it right, you can do multiple movies. He can have his own whole thing going on,
like they do
right?
with the Joker.
Yeah, but all that
Joker
could end up
2.
tying in. You could tie in Robert Pattinson's Batman, because he's still young enough to carry the franchise, right?
Yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix is getting a bit older, but he could have a successor.
We talked about this in the last video that we did, or one of the last videos that we did, where
we've been doing a lot lately.
Yeah, there's no confirmation from James Gunn or not James Gunn. Who's the director of the Joker? I forget his name. Todd something. Anyway, he confirmed that those two universes are not, or those two movies,
Batman and the Joker. They're not, because obviously they're set in different timelines.
They could. Just the same thing along with Elseworlds Superman that J.J. Abrams doing. Like, it could be if they wanted to take it that way. It could.
And I think that would be awesome, right? And it also allows you to, again, you know what, maybe this, like, okay, so maybe James Gunn releases his Superman and it does terrible.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, you've got an extra.
But then you've got an extra. You got a backup, right? Yeah. And you have a plausible explanation to it, right? Run both, but keep them separated. That's not Black Clark Kent. That is Val-Zod or Calvin Ellis. Like, you have these characters, and I also think it pays respect to the character in the comics, right? Because, again, to be fair, both of them, it's in the 2000s, right? Whereas, you know, again, we've been talking about, you know, Superman being from 1938. I'm okay with that, right? I love the idea of you created a black Superman, but it is not Clark Kent. You know, like we said with Krypton. I love those ideas because I want to create new characters if you want to change them up, right? That's all I ask. Is don't race swap and gender swap my favorite characters. Create your own. I don't care if it's a damn near carbon copy of the character.
Power swap if you're Echo, sorry.
Right? You know, but give them their own backstory and make it make sense for that character. Just put a little effort into it.
Yeah, put effort because again, I think the best thing you said so far, and it makes sense, and maybe it's the way the CEOs at Warner Brothers was thinking on this, or Discovery, whatever it is now at this point. But, like, it's like playing blackjack with two hands, right? Like, if this hand doesn't work out, well, then you got this one, right? Like, hopefully both of them do well. But if for some reason, and there's not a great track record for Superman movies, right? Like, if the main one fucks up and James Gunn fucks it up, which is, I don't know, it's a 50-50, maybe a higher probability than that it gets fucked up, just based on WB's track record here. Well, now you have this backup in this alternate universe, and I'm like, Joker was great. I enjoyed the Batman. It wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. But that's just another kind of side project. If the J.J. Abrams kind of goes that way, you're right. Like, you have a backup. If people hate this one, okay, you got your extra one here. You can still make money on, and you can still, okay, we'll just abandon that side and we'll kind of go with the Val Zod side, and you can go in with that multiple universe type thing. Like, you could totally do that.
So, when the Batman released, obviously Mantis and I had watched it. And, we were talking about it, and it was kind of like we equated it to the new James Bond at the time. Well, I mean, it had been a couple movies had released with Casino Royale, where I'm like, it didn't seem like a James Bond movie because you think about Bond, he's very suave, he's the ladies' man, he's very skilled, but he's been Bond for a while, whereas this movie was a brand new, he just started. And, Mantis had to remind me, because when I was talking about it, he goes, you have to remember, he's just becoming Batman, right? It's year 2. Which the year 1 comics, Batman is awesome. Mm-hmm. But it's like, he basically is, he is still starting, he's still figuring things out. And when you look at it through that lens, like, okay, yeah, it's not as bad. Like, and don't get me wrong, I wasn't saying it was bad. It wasn't like a Batman movie. Just like that wasn't a James Bond movie for me. Yeah. But when you look at it through that lens, you're like, okay, I could see where it has its merits, right? So it could be successful. It can do well, with this sequel, and they got Joker's sequel coming out and all this stuff. Because you know what? Maybe it's the DC fan in me. This is why you're watching a channel called You, Me, and DC. But my God, could you imagine having like a Val Zod Superman and a James Gunn Superman being led through I can't think of his last name. I can never pronounce his last name.
Cornsweet.
Yeah, it's like, but could you imagine having two different, even though they're Superman, they're actually, one's Clark Kent and one's, Val Zod, running at the same time or in and around the same time, but both successful? That'd be awesome. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. You can double the Superman.
Yeah, double the Superman, and then you bring them in on a crossover event is awesome. Instead of like a Marvel team up, DC's bigger on the crossovers, right?
Yeah, especially on the TV side. I mean, they leaned heavy into that.
Those were those popular episodes. I would love that. That'd be awesome, is to see that, right? So I'm all for it. I'm just like, just don't say, well, he's a black Clark Kent. No. You use what you already have. Use that because a lot of you have proven, not you guys audience-wise, but as far as writing this stuff, that you're not really great at venturing off into your own territory, right? Like, you struggle with it.
Yeah, the talent out there now, I feel like they're leaning... I don't even want to say it's low-hanging fruit, but it really feels like that with the social justice issues that you see all throughout the WB shows, the DC WB shows. Some of them don't lean that heavy into it, but some of them really do. And it's the ones that, like Batwoman or Batgirl, what the fuck it was, that just didn't get off the ground at all, or... That was an atrocity, by the way.
To be fair, it got off the ground enough to really crash, right? Like, because if it didn't get off the ground, then it wasn't considered a crash. It got off the ground enough just to create a crater. Yeah. Now, I will tell you, side note, a little bit of a tangent. I'll put a time code if you want to skip, but I did finally watch the 3rd season of Superman and Lois, right? And that's where it leaned more heavy onto the CW side of things.
Damn it.
No, I thought it was going to be bad. I was expecting, and to be fair, I went in kind of looking for certain things. And at first, there were a couple of things I started to nitpick, and then I'm like, well, no, that actually just fits with what's going on in the whole theme of the season, which wasn't bad. It was really good.
Interesting.
I really liked it. So I'm waiting now. The only problem is season 4 is going to be the last season, and they're going to dial it down to, I think, 8 episodes. But no, like... I was, because CW has come out, we did an earlier video where they said basically once Superman and Lois is done, they're out of the superhero business. And you know what? I thank you for that. Yeah. It's not the same thing. I thank you for that. But what I am grateful for is, because obviously first season of Superman and Lois, they had a lot of backing on the special effects budget from HBO Max.
That's why I was going to ask you, like, since CW is kind of getting out of it, do you think HBO is going to take the torch for the DCU TV shows?
Well, so we know we have the Lanterns coming as an actual TV show. So obviously, and that is James Gunn's going to be directing that as well. We've
The
got
Creatures is coming out. He's directing that.
the what?
The Creature... was it Creatures?
Creature Commando.
Creature Commando, sorry, yeah.
And we just did a video on that. All right.
This is my second glass. Okay.
Yeah, we recorded some stuff earlier, and the takes we did
Give
when
me
we
a
were
break.
drinking, they were not fake. That's real booze. But Creature Commandos, yes, but being animated. So yeah, I imagine, or I want to hope, because the thing is, when you get into throat get dry. When you get into the comic book stuff, that leans a lot more into special effects. Okay, we need more budget nowadays in them to make them look good and to make especially if you're doing Green Lanterns or Lanterns, right?
And I think, and this is completely going into left field here, but I know it's going to happen if it's not already happening. Is AI being used for this stuff? They can drop all this stuff and they can use AI and make this stuff better looking without all of these, software engineers, designers, and all this stuff. They can literally plug it in. I mean, it's not there yet. Maybe in the next 5 years, and maybe that's what DC or whoever owns the Discovery now that owns that is like. You know what? We need to get away from our old formula that is clearly is not working and move into something new. And if it is to leverage the experience of HBO Studios, which has been around forever and knows what the hell they're doing, especially for movies and TV shows. They could do HBO Max only movies for DC, right? Whether that be animated or live. I mean, they could do it. That'd be a perfect platform, quite honestly, to do some of your more obscure movies, some of your more obscure characters that are not mainstream, and kind of bring those up. Kind of like how Marvel did with Jessica Jones and Daredevil to an extent. I mean, I know a lot of people kind of know Daredevil, but
the people who know Daredevil have a nasty taste in their mouth after the Ben Affleck version.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. Like, they can introduce those characters that we've been talking about that have great stories that just haven't made it up there yet. And they leverage AI. I think that's the way it's going.
And, and we will see. I agree with you on that. And I think, like Creature Commandos, like you said, is a great way where it's animated. So I think you're going to be able to introduce a lot of characters into it without having to dial up on, $300-400 million budgets.
Yeah.
Because you'd made a good point in our video about Superman Legacy, Injustice versus the Golden Age is, about paying these actors, and actually even in Creature Commandos, you'd said about paying the actors. They don't want to do that anymore. So having a TV show or an animated show, kind of gets you around some of those landmines.
And it could be that's what, again, we're way off here from Elseworlds content, but maybe that's what the thought is from the executives making the decisions now. Is like, let's make something safe. Let's, we have these backup plans. We know we have golden stuff with Joker. We'll make another one of those. We're good. The Batman seems to be doing well. We'll make another one of those. We can take kind of a risk with this Elseworlds. If it pays off, great. If it doesn't, oh well, it's not the mainstream. It's not going to hurt us.
Cut the timeline, right? And I feel like it's almost a win-win scenario, right? Like there's no downside for them.
Right.
Run the Elseworlds, but it's not tied to the main universe. If both are doing well, do a crossover, right? Yeah. If not, bail on one of them. So I'm really excited to see what they do. I want to know what you guys think, as well as Mantis. I'm not trying to cut him out of that. Like, what do you think? Are we completely off base where, I don't want to see, and I'm, again, not trying to be racist, I don't want to see a Black Clark Kent. I want to see a Val Zod, or I want to see a Calvin Ellis come into if J.J. Abrams is, because James Gunn did confirm that it's still happening, Are we completely off base, or are we crazy? Do you want to see just, hey, let's race swap Clark Kent?
Look. I wouldn't want to see a black Clark Kent just like I wouldn't want to see a white Val Zod. That's just what I'll put.
Let's put it this way. And because I was editing the Creature Commandos video where we were talking about it. I wouldn't want to see a white Storm.
No.
Right? You know,
It's
there,
fucking
there's
stupid.
characters. I wouldn't want to see a white Blade or a white Black Panther. You know,
I know.
I wouldn't want to see these characters.
Yeah.
Like this is how they are. This is the vision you have of them. Like,
Yeah.
and especially if you have a very similar character waiting in the wings with good backstory already made, do that.
Yeah, that's just I don't know. That's just how I feel about it, and I feel like it's not that crazy of a feeling either.
Yeah, and I feel like, again, put a little effort to it. If you can get some good story in there, I'm excited to be able to see two different Supermen running concurrently.
Yeah, like we said, it's a win-win for them. Quite frankly, I mean, they lose nothing if it fails. It's an Elseworlds thing. Who cares? Just drop whatever. I mean, fuck it.
Bail on it.
Yeah.
Boom.
If it succeeds, fuck, that's just icing on the cake. That's just icing on the
That
fucking
makes your
cake.
crossover, like, you know,
Oh, yeah.
Avengers level crossover. Like,
Yes,
there's
yeah.
your, you know, $2 billion franchise right
And
there.
it's not bad gambling on J.J. Abrams. I know we shit on him a little bit because it was, I mean, specifically I hate him because of Star Wars, but it's like, it's not a bad gamble for him, specifically in the superhero world. I'm trying to think, has he done any superhero movies before? I'm just trying to think. I don't know. Let us know.
Not
in the
that I know,
comments,
but yeah, definitely.
if he has, I mean, it's not a bad gamble in my opinion with him. I mean, he's a modern filmmaker. He's made big movies before. He's taken on the big franchises like Star Wars. He didn't succeed, in my opinion. A lot of people like what he did with Star Wars. Me, not so much. Not a fan of what he did with Star Wars. But that doesn't mean he doesn't know this.
But my thing is, and guys, I know we're going to wrap this up. I know we're running a little long, but it's not long enough. I want to cut it to 2 parts for you guys. But I know we're running along. My thing is, though, with what you're doing with Superman is there is such a heavy fandom that if you just make a Black Clark Kent that are just going to immediately just not want to have anything to do with it.
Sure.
Versus if you go with a Val Zod or a Calvin Ellis, like even your hardcore Superman fans are going to say, okay, this is the Superman from Earth 2 or from Earth 23. I'll go watch it, right? Because as long as you got a good story, right? I
Yeah.
feel like if you just lean in and say, hey, this is going to be Black Clark Kent, and you just basically race swap it, you're going to lose your diehard Superman fans, and then it's going to flop.
I would agree because that's not the classic Clark Kent character. It'd be like making him deaf. It makes no sense. Or making him
Superman
a
deaf,
peg leg,
but somehow with
or-
super hearing.
yeah. I mean,
We just watched Echo not too long ago. That's why he just said both of those.
it's true. It's true.
Peg
I still
leg
got the
thing.
echo on my mind. But yeah, it's. I mean, we can cut it here. It's just there's definite room for success here if they do it correctly, and I don't have faith from what I've seen, but it's like I said, it's not a bad bet either way. They can't lose.
I'm open to it. I don't have. I'm very, very concerned, and I have a strong feeling it's not going to go that way. But I'm open to giving it a chance, just like with season 3
But here's the thing. It's not a feeling that it won't succeed because he's black. It's a feeling that it won't succeed because of how Hollywood is at this point and how the writing is done and how the track record of the past, I don't know, 10, 20 years of Superman movies.
Well, because all they want to lean on is him being black, right? They don't want to make a
Yeah.
good story, just like with Ghostbusters. All that. They're like, oh, we're just making women. We won't make a good story. It won't make any fucking sense. But because of this, you know, we have an out because then you're a bigot or you're a, you know, fucking toxic masculine
whatever ism
male.
you want.
You know, whatever you want on that stuff.
Sure.
Versus just make a good story.
Yeah.
That's
And
it.
I mean,
all you gotta do.
Wayne Brady's, he was like black actors, you know.
Yeah, black actors.
Yeah, man. You see, that's the thing with black actors, man. We need to just unify. We can't just be out like.
Exactly.
And also, no offense, I don't really want to see Michael B. Jordan cast as
No.
your
No,
like,
no,
like,
no,
he's like
no.
5'9", 5'10". I think
No.
he's 5'10"-ish.
Nope.
Like, no. And Idris Elba, I'm sorry,
Too
they're
old.
both awesome, but he's too old. You
old.
gotta find somebody else.
Yeah. And I don't like the guy that J.J. Abrams used as Finn either. They cast as Finn and
I'm not a fan of it. I'm sorry.
not John Boyega. Not really a fan
Yeah.
of him either. There's plenty of talent that you can find someone that has the build, the stature that can play Superman just fine.
Dude, bring somebody new in, right?
Yeah.
Like, we've not seen. That's what they're
Sure.
doing. Well, I mean, not really, but I mean, they're kind of trying to do the younger with the James Gunn's whole cast.
Yeah.
Just make them younger. Bring in some young new talent that
Yeah.
we, give them a chance. Let them, that are passionate about the character.
Yeah, there's plenty out there, I'm sure.
All right, guys, we did break our New Year's resolution on this one, but it was Passion Project and Mantis being here in the studio made it a little different here. So if you have made it with us this far, we appreciate it. Consider liking the video, commenting down below what you think about what timeline or who they should go with, and then subscribing to the channel for more.
Yeah, I would request that everyone put your, you guys are racist comments all in one thread. That way we don't have to go through all of the comments for it. So just kind of keep, well, you're racist, kind of go off of each other so we just win one thing.
Yeah, like if one person does it and then you guys just reply to that and let's just go that way, it only shows up as kind of one thing and we can go through and you guys calling us pieces of shit even though we're not. We've said multiple times it has nothing to do with the race. So do that and that'll make it easier for everybody.
Yeah.
If not, and you did actually appreciate that we are trying to, bring out these characters that are being, underrepresented in the comics, let us know that as well.
Yeah.
And I'm going to skip the customary thing because he's actually sitting right next to me. That'll do it for this episode. We will see you next time, guys.
Later.